First off, I started my first company that I exited in 1990. So it was 32 years until I sold. So when you do that, and you look at a sale of an enterprise that you have your blood, sweat, and tears in, what is that? What does that mean? It's a transaction and nothing more than a transaction. You've exited. And I absolutely love what Wes is doing with his boys now, because I'm doing something similar. 2 years prior to that sale in 22, I started Calm HR with my kids. And we did our financial planning beforehand. We put everybody as an owner through an irrevocable trust. So we did things differently. And I think that is the thread that I'll pull through any conversation that we have today or I'll have with any of you, is that having a business to sell is an entity, but it's also you. And you can't sell yourself. You cannot be there 24/7 for the acquirer. Something Wes said earlier, it's the family brand. It's his family. It's his face. And you have to protect that. And so I believe I'm doing that. Now I've gained a couple nuggets from Wes, so I'm going to continue that process of protecting our brand. So I'll just tee it up to you to introduce yourself and your background.
It's been an interesting journey, as you heard earlier today, and I didn't really have a lot of time to talk about it, but it depends on how deep you guys want to get into, the inner workings of not just the creation process, but the ever presence of your family throughout the business, and then when you leave the business, how do you leave the business in a way that doesn't affect their business? Does that make any sense? Eventually the family's leaving, which is what we were destined to do. How do we assure, through working with that company and laying some groundwork for their ongoing success, and how we support that still? I mean, I still support Angels Envy to this day, even though I don't own it. And I think that's really important. That's still my creation. That's still my brand, at the end of the day.
Oh, yeah.
Because I'll forever be associated with it. And my kids, just a real quick story before we get back into it. My kids, every once in a while, something will happen down in Angels Envy, or somebody will say something that pisses one of the kids off, which is just a natural course of things. And they're like, oh, we need to beat them into the, what I'm saying? We need to win. We need to do this. I'm like, guys, that's like, you buy a new house, but you had an old house, you had all these wonderful memories in that you created and built. You don't go burn down the old house just because you've moved to a new house. And I think in sharing that analogy with them, that's really made a big difference. And there's still competition.
That's true.
But it's a healthy competition. And as long as they continue to be successful, and guess what? Why not ride their coattails?
That's right. And that's why you built number 2. Right.
Exactly.
And I'll say this. You built a family brand, and it's your son's emotions. I'll say that again, emotions. I didn't know when I was creating the first exit how emotional I would be and what the change afoot would be after. So as I did the podcast earlier today, and when I listened to Wes, without even knowing the whole story about his journey during the exit, I caught a couple nuggets that made me feel confident that he probably did everything the right way, and he dealt with the bat, the most effective way possible that he knew, without taking out a bat, baseball bat that is. In which case, I look at what I did and I learn from what I did, because you all are bringing people to a sale, or you're buying somebody to put into your portfolio. That's it. Those are the two things, or financing and whatever else goes on. And it's amazing how many people don't really have their shiitakes together. Wes had his. I thought I had mine together. I learned differently. And when you get part of a larger organization, they want to change you, which is unfortunate. And so I get what your boys are feeling, and I've felt the same way. This time around, it's just us. It was me before by myself. So how many of your 6, or 4.5, should I say, were in Angel's Envy?
4 of them at one point or another were involved with Angel's Envy.
So that's why they have that fight in them to protect the name and anything that went on post.
I think so. And just to explain the 4.5, one of them is a consultant, a part-time IT consultant. So that's kind of where the half came from. It's a good and bad thing. One thing that there's always this, they love what we did at Angel's Envy. They're proud of it. But one thing that, and this is also a lesson in an acquisition of a family business. One thing Bacardi did not do a good job of, with my kids in particular, and really with the whole team, they were not very good at career development and having a clear path of succession through my family, although I ended up working on that through Harvard and everything like that. But so my kids were a little frustrated also when they left. And I had less control, even though I really did. I had control all the way to the top of Bacardi. I could pick up the phone and call Facundo, but I didn't abuse that at all. I used that only when stuff like the bat happened, something that I think was really serious. But there was a little bit of discontent there because of our failure to do a good job in setting them up for success in the future, to see that path.
And the fact that it's your kids, it just hits home. If it was an owner-founder who had a friend or someone that was very important to their success, it's the same thing. It's the career development and the continuation of that individual or those people. In your case, it was just very personal. Very personal,
and look, there's a certain element of nepotism there as well.
Oh, I know that.
And the key, I think, is to not let your kids come up with that, or your family members, whatever, come up with that sense of entitlement. But guess what? By definition, in the bourbon business, families are so important. And guess what? Like it or not, the family will be the ones that'll be first and foremost and out front. So but you also got to make, you don't have a couple clowns up there in your family that are going to, they have to be able to rise to the occasion. So you have them in different parts of the businesses. I had them learning everything they could possibly learn about that business. So when they are tapped to be one that comes up front, it's not somebody saying, well, that person only did this because they're so-and-so, not because they know what they're doing.
Now, that's a good point, because my 4 cross-marketing or cross-pollinating in different places inside the business, and it just goes to show you that my idea of building this with them, learning from them, because if you're not learning, just shut the front door. I learn from them every day. I don't always agree with them, as they don't agree with me, but they will need a career path. Your kids are similarly situated to my 33 to 29-year-olds, so we're right in line in a way. And if we have a 5-year trajectory, they're not even 40 years old. And even if they had the money, I would want them doing their own thing and doing other things. So retirement is not an option in our family.
I agree. Can I say something about, you mentioned something about learning from your kids, and
yep.
It's overall always an interesting dynamic working in a family business. But as a parent, you know how it is with your kids. Mom and dad is always right? Mm-hmm. Growing up. And it's been a joy for me to see them, the more they get involved in the business, the more experience they have. And really, at the end of the day, we raise our kids. We want them to be smarter and more successful than us and everything like that. But there was a point where I started realizing when I'd ask their opinion about something, it's like, oh, that actually makes sense. It starts there, okay? And then, as things have gone along, as I think I might have mentioned during my talk that my son Kyle is now our chief operating officer at 39. The point is, wow, they have a better idea than I do. So when you mentioned learning, that is a joy for me as a parent and as a business owner. And it doesn't have to just be your kids. It's your team, your entire team. You want them collectively looking at things differently than the way you look at them. And even coming up with things, but you have to, ego's part of this title, right?
Yep.
You got to be able to set your ego aside and say, oh, wow, that's a better idea than what I had.
The ego is the biggest thing. You've got an owner-operator that created something, that knows how to work 24/7, and let's face it, the kids of this generation might not work as hard as the previous generation. I mean, I started my first business before I was 12. The second one I sold to my brother after 11 years. I washed windows. So I don't see kids going out and doing that. Now, we as fathers, as business owners and creators, bring them into an industry, teach them that industry. Now, yours is a family legacy that goes way past. And that's a blessing, to be able to pass that down. I certainly didn't want to pass window washing or insurance to my kids, but it's how you take your past experiences to build the next great idea. And then when you have those kids around you, taking their ideas and amplifying the business. And I think that's where my love as well is.
And let me tell you this. It is liberating to be able to go to work and know stuff's handled.
And you trust implicitly.
Exactly. And it takes a while. And look, we're all type A people. You know, we got to be in control. We got to be on top of stuff all the time. And to be able to live your life at some point to where you're able to let go of that. It's maddening not to see you guys. I can't see you all. But I will say one of the things we're talking about our family, the most important thing I think is for your kids to see, and we hide these from our kids, by the way. Yeah. My kids don't know that there were times where we were living paycheck to paycheck and we were worried about, dinner, going to Kroger and getting food and things like that. That's a lot of mouths to feed. And they're boys and they eat a lot of food. But we shield our family, and there's a point here, I promise I'll get to it. Our kids especially from seeing failure, experiencing failure. And by doing that too much, you're doing them a disservice. I think it's important that they see the struggle. I think it's important that they see, guys, I've failed 10 times over anything I've succeeded at.
I think you hit it spot on. The fact that when I took my boys to Little League and everyone got a medal is not the way this country was built, and it's not going to do them any service. Same thing goes with, failure. We all fail. If we didn't, we'd be looking up to the heavens. So I agree with you 100%, and they should hear the stories of the failure, of deciding how to buy the food when you didn't have. And I told my boy who runs our finance and ops, I said, there was a year where I didn't take a penny till August. And I said, I paid everybody, everyone got paid, and I was siphoning everything. And they never had to experience that. And they probably will never have to experience that. They have already been set up for success. However, they may have an impasse in their lives, whether it's a personal impasse or financial impasse. And I hope they become entrepreneurs post this. I hope they learn from what they've seen, what they've experienced from the exit whenever that happens, and take with them their own story that they can now create their own. So I 101%.
It's interesting. And by the way, I'm in a startup now. True Story is really still a startup. And this is my year. I'm not taking a salary this year. I mean, certainly I can live. I did okay when I sold Angel's Envy, but I need that money to go back into the business. We're out there trying to raise money and stuff like that. It's kind of hard for me to justify, pulling money out.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. Calm HR has been in business for 5 years. I haven't taken a penny in salary. It's doing its job building with us, managing it for the future. And it's an investment. And what people don't understand about businesses is you're investing your sweat equity, you're investing your time, you're investing your money. We were heavily invested. We did not take outside money. And as you bootstrap each business, then maybe you'll take money for the opportune reasons of growth, exponential growth, and get you to a place that you couldn't have been before. But I'm right there with you, brother.
I think that, I know we're really drifting. Are you okay with a lot of this family business talk? Okay. Because not all your businesses you're dealing with are family businesses, but you're dealing with people. And these are the same attributes you look for when you're working with a company, and successful companies are companies that, in a way, that they are families.
Yes.
So these values apply not just to a blood family, they apply to any family. And you know, with kids, at the end of the day, in my day as a parent, my responsibility is to keep them alive, right? And keep them from hurting somebody else. That's pretty simple, right? You know, feed them, water them, you know, stay out of trouble, you know, then that's our job. But you want good humans. And I truly believe if you have good humans, and you have humans, and I'm talking about businesses you deal with, people that are involved in activities outside of the business, people that are, you know, that do the right things throughout their entire lives, then you've built something that's solid. And I hope you look for those in your businesses. If you have businesses with your people, if you want to buy a business, if you're looking to match some people together, those are the businesses that have longevity, and the businesses that I think transcend, what I said earlier, transcend the transactional.
Well, it's funny because you have a family business, and you built an amazing business and sold it. You were one business that worked and distributed, and you touched other businesses, other vendors. In my industry, all I do is touch other businesses. We don't have, you know, golden juice to sell. We have golden ideas. And when I see these other businesses that we deal with, if it's not a family-owned business, there is somebody at the top, and then, like you said, everybody that works there is their family. And how they run their operation speaks huge volumes. And while I had my breakout session, Friday morning at 8:30, I spoke to an owner. She is only this much of an owner right now because she sold that much to private equity. And she took a call at 8:30 in the morning on vacation with her husband and 4 other couples. And she told me what she did for the one person that was causing her grief, like $250,000 of grief. And that was paying the salary since July till she could go on disability. That's what people do. That's how a business is run and why they are successful.
A couple things. And look, we've all taken those calls, right? You know, that's why you guys are here. You guys hustle. You guys are trying to grow your businesses. And the people that hustle, the people that are successful are the ones that take that call at 8:30 in the morning, because that's just what you have to do. But I think I touched on something you said a minute ago as far as how the attitude starts at the top. And one of the most dangerous jobs, once again, you heard my talk. I work in law enforcement now. I deal with death, essentially, murder, suicide, whatever. Any type of violent death you can think of, I work with it on a fairly regular basis. The most dangerous job I've ever had was being a Little League umpire. And you all know what I'm talking about? And you got little kids out there that have seen. First of all, the parents are the worst part. You know, I was really good at that. And the problem is I was good at it. They would assign me to games where they had problems. So I'm like, oh, great, thanks. You know, give me. So what I've noticed is, and I've noticed not just in baseball and sports, the team will take on the personality of the coach. If the coach is an asshole, he's got a bunch of old kids that are right underneath him. So am I right? I know I am. I know you believe me. So I don't know what made me think about that little nugget, but it's so important.
If the kids are assholes, then it also reflects to the parental units.
Oh, they're all assholes. I mean, you know, I've thrown parents. I've had parents fighting in the stands before. And first of all, just sit back and watch for a little while because it's kind of funny. And then, throw. Can you believe that, having to throw parents and little league coaches out of the, But every little league coach thinks their son, little Johnny's going to be a professional baseball player someday, and it's you know how it is.
Yeah. What was that one time when I envisioned myself knowing, become fully aware? We all have a lot of knowledge, and you accumulate more and more and more in experiences. But I'll liken it to this. Y'all see the Matrix movies? The first one, Neo, Keanu Reeves, is in the burnt-out train station. He's fighting Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith is throwing a right hook, and he just lifts his left hand like that to block it. It was when I knew what was going to happen before it happened. And that's when I felt like I smiled internally to myself. I didn't tell it to anybody else. And I said, oh, we've come of age. We're here. I now know what I'm doing. I now know what I'm worth. And I don't have to change for anybody. And it's an aha moment. Everybody gets there someday, I hope. And for me, it was, and I literally thought about the movie. So what that was, it's unimportant, okay? When it happened, how it happened, but it was me realizing, wow, I actually know what I'm doing, and I'm happy about it, and I helped somebody, and only I need to smile. I don't need a pat on the back, and that gave me my self-worth. And I've always had self-worth. But then once you have that, and I'm not talking about gravitas or ego, I'm talking about when you are aware of it, then you can pass that along. And that's what I've been trying to do with my kids. Like when my daughter would see me leave for an early meeting or breakfast meeting somewhere, and she says, where are you going? And I said, TTMD. She goes, what's that? I said, time to make the donuts. So now, when I'm doing things, she has that. She is telling me not to do something. You don't have the time for that. It's not going to be beneficial to us. You can't spend the money on that. And I'm going, oh, okay. So for me, it was that.
And as is mentioned about his daughter, and same thing with our team members, they're watching all the time. They're picking those things up, whether we believe so or not. There are three things for me, I think, to answer your question. The first one, I'm not going to go into the whole story because it's kind of long, but it's funny as hell. Maybe after some drinks, I'll tell you later. So Brown-Forman, when we started Angels Envy, Brown-Forman was the company my dad retired from that has Jack Daniels, Woodford, and all that stuff. We were like a little dog hanging on their leg. They didn't really give about us, and they shouldn't have because we were nothing. So I did a big guerrilla marketing stunt at Churchill Downs before the Kentucky Derby, and it was good. It was really good. Two things happened. Number one, Brown-Forman was one of the sponsors there. So they had me physically removed from Churchill Downs, which has happened to me 3 times, by the way, folks, since then. I am not allowed on the red carpet at Churchill Downs anymore. And then I heard that when all this incident was happening from one of their marketing directors, this is after, she said, Wes, when this happened, I was on a beach down in Florida, and my team called me. They were in a panic because of what I did, and and it went all the way to the top of the company, literally all the way up to the top of the company. So I'm like, you guys got to be kidding me. I'm little old Angels Envy, and something I did like that, just a little guerrilla marketing stunt, got the entire company in a tizzy over that. That was cool.
Then you know you were successful.
No, that was great. That was great. The second one is anytime I get a big, especially early, I get a big account. I remember going to Las Vegas, getting the MGM group. Not only do I love me some Vegas, I'm like, wow. So the first time we had it in the MGM, I think it was the Mirage or the Aria, and I was walking by the High Roller Bar, and I stopped to get a drink, and there was a guy at the bar, and the bartender comes up, and the guy at the bar says, well, what should I get? And they didn't know who I was. The bartender said, well, there's this brand called Angels Envy from the Henderson family that created Woodford Reserve. We just got it in. Would you like to try it? I still get tickled about that when I go, to this day, even with Angels Envy too. I'll stop and talk. I'll introduce myself. And the last thing that I think is pretty cool is the first band that had Angels Envy on their contract rider, which is Tool. You all heard of Tool before? Maynard, God bless him. He's an eccentric, crazy. But so I got many a call from a panic promoter that said, we can't find any Angels Envy, and Maynard has to have it before his concert. So, and that carried on to other bands. That's how I became friends with Lars at Metallica and all these guys. The bourbon business is fun, by the way. So those are little things that you run into that you're like, And then one last thing. I'm sorry, I'm talking way too much. When you find that your brand has crossed over into pop culture, like somebody's written it into a song, which has happened. You see it on television. You see other things. When you become a part of pop culture, that's like, this is something that we created. And you sit back like, wow, this is really cool.
So I have a question for each of you, different ones. For Joe, what problem, as you start a new business, you try to solve for a problem. So what was that problem that you're solving for or doing different than you had done at your previous firm? And then I have a separate one for Wes.
So let me repeat it. What problem am I solving for today or that I didn't?
Doing things different than your previous.
What am I doing different in this company than
Yes.
Listening.
I love it.
I'm married to a Grecian goddess, all right? Julie is your wife? Okay, Pam is mine. And it's taken me 20 years of marriage, and we have kids from 24 to 33, so you go do the math. How to actually open up these two and shut this one. So that's me. I'm always learning. She gave me a PhD in PITA. For those of you who don't know, that's pain in the... And so that's how I run my life. And so I honestly, I'm answering your question. I'm not trying to be funny. Well, yes, I am. Is that I want to learn, and I want to have fun, and I want to explore and grow. And when I mean grow not just here, but here, emotions, everything. And so this new company is an opportunity to grow as an individual, as a parent, as a mentor, as a business owner, and have fun along the way, make a couple of bucks, and actually pass something along to the kids. So that's for me.
There's a lot of us here in this room, and I'm not as good of a listener. I don't think I've learned it as well as Joe has.
What'd you say?
As a listener, yeah, right, yeah. I'm getting better at it. But one thing I tell to my people is it's not winning, it's not knowing when to talk, it's knowing when not to talk. That's one of the most important business lessons you'll have, especially if you're negotiating something.
So bourbon, I love bourbon, and it seems to be very popular in the last 7 years plus. I've gone to the Bourbon Trail. I've been to Angels Envy. I've been to Woodford Reserve. The story, the blend, the taste of the product, the bottle design and marketing are super important. And it sounds like you might think it's important also the experience in Kentucky. And I've heard that you bought a special place to kind of lay your flag in Kentucky. And so tell us more about that.
About the castle or just?
About the castle and just the experience of your brand, and the importance of that.
Right. Bourbon, there's so much in bourbon that's connected to, we're selling a lifestyle. One thing that's really been impactful to me, the reason the name of our brand is True Story is I've traveled all around the world and been blessed to drink whiskey with a lot of people. But opening that bottle starts the discussion. I sign a lot of bottles for people, and they'll say, I'm never going to open this. I'm going to put it on my shelf. First of all, I'll say buy two, open one, save the other one. Always selling, right? At the end of the day, we're doing that too. And I'm like, there's so many stories inside that bottle to be told. All you need to do is open it and share it with your friends. And I've had so many stories of people sharing of, from a funeral and a birthday and a promotion and just a hard day at work. And that's been very impactful to me. I hope this doesn't sound cliche or sound odd, but I'm present at those moments with your families and with you, with my brand. I'm not physically present. That's really creepy. I'm not looking through your window. Maybe. But the fact that something that we've created has been it's part of your day, it's part of your life, and it's part of your celebration. That has been a really cool experience for me. And bourbon, just in general, is part of the fabric of Kentucky. We're a huge employer in Kentucky. Bourbon is American. It's uniquely American. You can't make it anywhere else but in the United States. So I truly believe that that's been a fun part of what I've been experiencing and how important that's been to me. Was there an answer to that question anywhere in there? We got a couple minutes. So Angel's Envy has a special release every year called Cask Strength. Anybody heard of Cask Strength? It's you're bourbon people. Once a year special release in this beautiful wood box. Amazing engraved wood box. People wait for the box every year. I got an email from a guy a few years ago that said, "Wes, I love your spirits. I love the Cask Strength." He said, "I also really love my parrot." I'm like, okay, that's great. We all love our animals. Super. He loved his parrot so much, and he loved Angel's Envy so much. I opened the email, and there's a picture. That beautiful box. He buried the parrot in his box. Any of y'all know the dead parrot skit from Monty Python? That really, really, really hits home even further. But, you talk about, he showed me a picture of the parrot in the box, closed the box, laid the box on the ground, boom, covered it up. Like, that's a hell of a fan right there. The two things that he loves, put them together like that. So anyway, go ahead, it's your turn.
No. You create. You created something, and yes, you could be a stalker at someone's window, looking in while they're drinking, but to say that you are there with them on all of those occasions. I'm a sharer. I love to share everything. I don't like getting gifts. I feel awkward. I love giving gifts. That's why my wife loves when I create jewelry for her. But sharing something that you've created truly changes the entire dynamic of a business because it's now personal. You have sweated over and created something that other people enjoy, that they can savor and share at the tears and the smiles, and that has to give you such a warm feeling literally every single day. Yeah, you have a business. Yeah, you're building a business with your boys, but you get to share something that you actually created over and over again, and I think that transcends business. It just blows the top off of the business.
You all get this. There is joy in sharing. There's joy in, I like to take people places that I'm able to go that a lot of times people can't get into, or people go, and I want them to experience that with me. I want them to enjoy that. I want them to, like I said, the Metallica thing. I want you to go to any of these people that I'm blessed to know and love and see them perform and be backstage where you would never have done that before. I get joy in that. I really do. And we should all, you guys get it. We're all like that. I know. Did you have another question?
Question right here, please.
Yep.
We want to know what the guerrilla marketing tactic was.
Well, there were several, actually. The first one was, real quickly, the Kentucky Derby is the first Saturday in May. So the week before, they've got the backside at the track. So behind the track at Churchill Downs, you've got all the TV stations, all the radio stations, all the newspapers have got booths. So they're promoting the Kentucky Derby, and all the different businesses that are associated with the Derby come and do interviews and everything like that. But Brown-Forman sponsored it. So that was apparently the only spirit that was supposed to be back there. Well, I roll up with a bunch of samples bottles, like the little teeny tiny sample bottles. And we also had a couple of our marketing members who were beautiful young ladies dressed with angel wings on. Our bottle has angel wings on the back of it, right? So I show up, and I was an invited guest, by the way, and I'm making the rounds doing all the TV interviews, and didn't pay a dime for any of it, by the way. And finally, somebody shows up and said, "You're not allowed to be here." They own the rights to the bag. I'm like, I was invited here. And you know what else is interesting? I was talking about their brand while I was doing it at the same time. I said, this is Kentucky, this is bourbon, this is all these wonderful things. I know Woodford's back here. They're a great brand too. We have a family association with them, blah, 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 blah. But this is how short-sighted they are. So they literally had me physically removed from the backside of the track. And then one year I was on the red carpet at the Kentucky Derby, and that scared them because everybody was saying this is the founder of Angel's Envy. But guess what? You know what else I was doing? I was thanking Woodford Reserve for being a sponsor of the. So I know it's long-winded here. One last thing. So I come back the next year to the red carpet. I've got a friend of mine, John Driscoll Hopkins. He's in Zach Brown Band. He's with me. Fortunately, I didn't bring Pitbull that year. He was supposed to come with me. So we get up to the red carpet. Mr. Henderson, you can't come in. It's like they had my picture there on the wall, like a wanted picture, waiting for me because they were scared to have me on the red carpet because I represented another brand that made them a little bit nervous.
And they didn't know what was going to come out of your mouth.
Well, and smartly so. However, but guess what? I would have done exactly what I said I would have done. I would have said, this is bourbon, this is Kentucky. Thank you so much to Woodford Reserve for being what you're being, for doing what you do in this state. Love you guys. Happy to be in the same business with you. And that would have been it. That's what I would have done. So, it was so petty. But to this day, I'm like, I can't believe you guys were that scared of little old me. It's nice to do that, right? Did I answer your question? Okay, thank you.
I got a question for you now. Can you hear me? Hi. So the preamble to my question is, I work in M&A integration, and my wife's a Latina, so it's important you know that first. So, Wes, in the earlier talk, you talked about the Bacardi integration going so smoothly with a Latin company, Latin family-owned business. Going smoothly doesn't often go with integrations. So give me two things they did well. Two things they did well.
You're saying a family with a bunch of Cubans is not easy to work with?
I'm married to them.
Wow. That's one thing that I think they've had trouble there over the years. That's one of the reasons they've had trouble with chief executives. It's no secret. They've been through a lot of those, and it's largely because of family dysfunction. I think that I just stayed out of the fray there. They knew they had something great. They knew that we knew about bourbon. They knew about rum. We would take the things that we needed from them to be even more successful, and they would sit back and let us do what we do very well. So that's, and also, what I did too? All those family members, I got them as ambassadors for my brand. I did family events just with Angel's Envy and the family members. I did that thing at Harvard, I was telling you about the family succession class that they had for the Bacardi family. And I made sure that they were included in our marketing efforts, that they realized they're extensions of our brand, that they can help move the needle. And I think that by itself just made a huge difference in how things went, and my relationship with the family as well. They viewed me as a primo or a family member as well. And I think that was really key. But other than that, it was just typical company bullshit that big companies can kill small companies. It happens every day. It probably happens more often than not. Do you think?
Absolutely. And you probably set an example for how it should be done. So I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you. I hope so. I think so. And they're doing well now, without me. I mean, for real. I continue to support them, and it could have very easily. There are brands that they acquired. There's a brand called Saint Germain, which is a great brand, but it was not a good integration. They say now, we don't want to Saint Germain that deal. What does that tell you? But at least they're smart enough to know what can happen.
So final thoughts on some words of wisdom. You both can comment on this. So above and beyond the finances, the stress of preparing and all the hard work to create the exit, whether you're staying or not, you don't own it anymore. They do, and so your way of doing things is done. So there's a different agenda now, and you need to comply and be malleable. So curious if you both share your wisdom with us on that statement.
Well, first off, they will be buying you. You must be malleable. You must plan for every possible experience that will happen to you. And I like comparing Wes's exit and mine because you will have to change. That is for sure. The question is, where are you going to have to change and what are you going to fight on? Whether it's fighting on the bat or letting in some of their knowledge and sharing in best practices of what got you there and maybe how to get you further. So I'm sure Bacardi has multiplied the value of Angel's Envy. As a owner-founder in a service business that creates recurring revenue, if I am pulled out of that equation, it doesn't grow anymore. So I am different and more I don't want to even say unique. I'm just different than what Wes is doing, but he was that face. And I would say one thing for everybody in this room. The person that doesn't know everything that's going to happen to them will have sold themselves short. So if you're going to prepare yourself or a client for an exit, they should be so equipped to understand every facet, and they have to understand one thing, and that is humility and check your ego at the door, because you created it and they will do something with it because they have given you a lot of zeros and you don't have control anymore. So be prepared to do that. And it's best if you have an earnout that you have fun in that earnout, you're supported in that earnout, and you are both rowing in the same direction. Mine was not. And so I have war stories, which I have taken with me to the next potential exit. I don't want to say potential, it will exit.
I like the word malleability. I never really consider myself to be like that, but I definitely something you had to learn. I believe a lot of this success leading to an eventual merger acquisition is baked in from the very beginning. And that's one thing I think I've been able to do with this project that was, I had no comprehension when I started Angel's Envy. We just want to make a little bit of bourbon as a family. We had no clue, first of all, that the bourbon industry was going to blow up the way it blew up. And we had no vision beyond that, just wanting to do something fun as a family. But now I'm thinking ahead. I'm thinking about all those things. And being malleable, going back to Angel's Envy, is that, guess what? You sold the company. It's not yours anymore. And I told her, look, I mean, at the end of the day, you can do whatever the hell you want. However, it's been my experience, and you paid a lot of money for this company, right? Don't you want me to do everything I can to preserve what you paid? If you didn't like it, you wouldn't have paid so much money for it. So let's not go in and put things in play that might harm your investment. Let's not put processes in play just to have processes. I was really big on that. People would come to me and say, Wes, we want you to do it this way. And, blah, blah, blah. And I got to be saying, okay, that's a good suggestion, but we're going to do it this way. Because you charged me with what you paid hundreds of millions of dollars for to preserve and to make better. So you've got to be flexible in that regard. And ego has a lot to do with it, man.
Please, everybody, it doesn't make a difference a man or a woman. You build something, you have an ego. and it's indelibly inked or etched in that business. And to remove that and erase that doesn't happen very easily. But a Bacardi paying all that money thought that they would, and you pushed back. And every owner needs to go in understanding what is going to happen and how you can help them. And I love what you just said, is that you paid all this money and you charged me with keeping this and helping you to create additional value. And I haven't heard that said before, and that truly is what an exit should be, where you remind them how much they spent and why they picked you and why you're doing this earn-out, and you're a partner with them. You've already been paid, but you want to protect that legacy. And I think that's amazing.
And get as much money as you can up front. Earn out, smart out. I want 90% cash up front.